Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star based on novel. So let's start. In an area of the ancestral god secret region floated some fragments of mountains. A stooping shadow stood on top of one of the mountain fragments. It was Bark Mirror Emperor. Zoom. A silver shadow showed up and landed on another mountain fragment. Bark Mirror Emperor, you arrived here quite quickly, said Luo Feng, standing on the mountain fragment with his wings open. Bark Mirror Emperor sneered. You're not slow, either. I thought your true treasure, the wing, was lost in the 9 remoteness whirlpool. But now I see it again. It should be claimed by some supreme being of the human race. Luo Feng smiled. Think whatever you want. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. In the open-air square of the world of glory. All the heirs gathered on the open-air square. They were all sitting and looking at Bark Mirror Emperor, who was at the center of the square. I'll broadcast this battle through the virtual network. Bark Mirror Emperor looked around. Everyone will see who the winner is. Bark Mirror Emperor pointed to the space beside him. Suddenly, a light shot out and formed a projection. All the heirs could see distinctively that Luo Feng stood on a gigantic mountain fragment, while Bark Mirror Emperor stood on another. They stood face to face with each other. Bark Mirror Emperor is so reckless and confident that he is doing a live broadcast through the virtual network, someone said. He's a special life form. Why would he not be confident? Quick, tell our race. The virtual network kept broadcasting the battle, and the heirs watching the fight telecast it back to their own races. Ha ha. Let's see how the human dies. He'll win without question. The Northern Territory Alliance looked fierce. As for the heirs in Hong Alliance, they were all watching, holding their breath. Thousand Rain Emperor asked True Yang Knight in a low voice, do you think Blade River Emperor can win, True Yang Knight? True Yang Knight gazed at the project in the sky. Just watch. At this moment, lots of seniors from the superpowers of the universe were also paying close attention to the fight, like many universe knights in the human race. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Luo Feng stood on a floating mountain fragment, looking at Bark Mirror Emperor in the distance. He glared at him. Bark Mirror Emperor, I didn't expect you to do a live broadcast through the virtual network. What? Are you afraid? Bark Mirror Emperor grimaced and showed his fangs. Luo Feng shook his head. If you want to bring shame upon yourself, why should I stop you? So arrogant. Bark Mirror Emperor snorted. Now that we've both arrived, there's no need to wait longer. Let's start the fight now. So I can kill you even earlier than expected, Luo Feng replied. Bark Mirror Emperor's face twisted. Foolhardy human. Bark Mirror Emperor roared. His godly power started to burn, and the force surged. It twisted and tore apart the space around him. Bark Mirror Emperor was small compared to other special life forms, but he was still much larger than human beings. He already had an advantage in size. Sheeing. A bloody glove showed up around his right claw, and that claw cut apart the space around it. In response, Luo Feng grinned and burned his godly power. Luo Feng's force also surged and tore apart the space around him. Bark Mirror Emperor was startled. How is that possible, he said. Luo Feng wasn't as powerful as he was in the world of glory, and he even felt weak before the fight. However, when Luo Feng started to burn his body, he began emanating power as intense as Bark Mirror Emperor, a special life form. And Bark Mirror Emperor's godly body was stronger than some universe knights. Bark Mirror Emperor glared at Luo Feng and yelled, you hid your power. Luo Feng shook his wing. Too late, he said. Countless stars floated with lore engravings on them. After being injected with Luo Feng's godly power, they disintegrated the space around them, forming miniature black holes. No space fragments would even touch the stars. 520 stars. 520 miniature black holes. The stronger the user was, the more powerful the treasures would become. Luo Feng's godly body was stronger than many universe nights, and each of the burning stars was fully utilized. Although he hadn't performed his technique, the stars had already made the space around them collapse and form black holes. This is a true treasure. Bark Mirror Emperor was terrified, as the power was incredible. I've told you, it's too late. Luo Feng waved his hands. Instantly, countless golden threads burst out of the 520 miniature black holes and formed a forceful beast god. The 520 black holes connected with each other and took the shape of the beast god's tail. Bark Mirror Emperor clenched his teeth. It was happening too fast. He had intended to crush Luo Feng, but now Luo Feng was slightly more powerful than him, and his spiritual force weapon was a true treasure. Arg! Bark Mirror Emperor roared. God, I'm human. You're only so powerful because of your true treasures. As for your weapons, ha ha. I'm a special life form with a godly body much more powerful than yours. Even true treasures are not going to help you. Die. Bark Mirror Emperor charged Luo Feng fiercely. Both of them cast Space Seal to start of the battle. Splendid like stars, the red light rips the nightfall like a blade, said Luo Feng. He shook his wing and dodged Bark Mirror Emperor. Meanwhile, he watched the gigantic beast god in the distance. The beast god growled. Bark Mirror Emperor growled as well and performed his talent technique. Luo Feng was attacked but was left unharmed. I was already able to defend myself against that talent technique using Tower Pearl. Now, I can withstand it even without Star Pearl. He looked at the beast god and Bark Mirror Emperor Fa, who started to fight. This was the power of a spiritual force leader. He didn't need to engage in close quarters combat. The beast god's tail moved like a flash of shining red light. Out of the 3 ultimate techniques Luo Feng had created, the second move was the fastest one, and besides, all the power was integrated into this one move. If the enemy dodged it, Luo Feng might need some time to make a second strike. The red light tore apart the surrounding space and attacked Bark Mirror Emperor directly. Bark Mirror Emperor waved his claws, bellowing loudly. The attacking power broke Bark Mirror Emperor's arm instantly. The beast god's tail slashed Bark Mirror Emperor's chest. The godly body started to crack, and the golden light emanating from the true treasure armor dimmed. Impossible. Bark Mirror Emperor glared at Luo Feng, terrified. 6% of his godly body was destroyed. And it had happened with his armor protecting him. Luo Feng sensed that Bark Mirror Emperor had become weaker. He nodded and thought, just as I expected. He had more godly power than Bark Mirror Emperor. Although Bark Mirror Emperor also had true treasures, Luo Feng's star map was a true treasure, too. As for techniques, although he only performed the second move of star map, the second ultimate move was already much more powerful than the third pinnacle move. The third move needed 160 stars, whereas the second one required 520. Although Bark Mirror Emperor created his own claw technique, it could barely pass the threshold of pinnacle techniques. All of them made Luo Feng stronger than his competitor. Besides, his incredible willpower further strengthened his godly power. Warriors didn't need much willpower when attacking, while spiritual force leaders valued willpower to a great extent. The capacity of a spiritual force weapon depended on the strength of willpower. With such an extraordinary will, Luo Feng destroyed 6% of his enemy's godly body. You're doomed, Bark Mirror Emperor. Luo Feng gazed at Bark Mirror Emperor coldly. The beast god attacked Bark Mirror Emperor again and again. He strived to dodge the attack, but he was nowhere close to the speed of the spiritual force weapon, which might be faster than Luo Feng with his Shawu wings. He could only be slashed again and again. Bark Mirror Emperor had true treasures to protect his godly body, while Luo Feng had a true treasure to attack him. They didn't have any advantages over each other in this aspect. Bark Mirror Emperor still looked mad. Ha ha, he roared. My godly body is clearly much larger than yours. You need to consume more than 1% of my godly power to annihilate my godly body. Do you really have that much power? Really? Luo Feng sneered. The more powerful one had an edge in annihilating godly power. For instance, Emperor Limits had the same amount of godly power as pinnacle emperors did. However, they used their secret amplification techniques, or attacking techniques, to strengthen their power tenfold, and that was how they could annihilate Emperor Limit's godly bodies by consuming 5 to 10% of their own power. As for Luo Feng, he also needed to consume 1% of Bark Mirror Emperor's godly power to destroy him completely. However, Luo Feng's godly body looked tiny. How come? Why isn't your godly body being weakened? Bark Mirror Emperor's golden eyes were wide open, filled with fury. Moron. That's because of my clone technique. Luo Feng grinned. One of his rings was holding a remote ocean body, and the remote ocean body, at the height of more than 5,500 miles, kept supplying him with endless godly power, which kept the original Earthling body at 100%. Ah? Bark Mirror Emperor was petrified. How could he have forgotten about that? You're carrying your bodies. Bastard human. With that, Bark Mirror Emperor went mad. He tried to run, but the beast god just kept slashing him, and his godly body kept being damaged. 51%. 45%. 39%. Your teacher Tru Yang and you, roared Bark Mirror Emperor. He had completely lost his mind. He could only resort to self-destruction, unless he wanted to fall. Explode. 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 Bark Mirror Emperor's remaining body exploded, and tens of millions of miles of space around him were annihilated. Suddenly, a huge shadow showed up. The figure looked around, then shook his head. I'm late, he said. I tried to get here as soon as possible after realizing something was wrong, but I'm still too late. Bark Mirror Emperor exploded. Huh, said Luo Feng, standing amid the aftershock of the explosion. He turned around and saw the figure in the distance. Its sudden appearance startled him. Pei Feng Knight, one of the supreme beings of the Northern Territory Alliance, and one of the candidate deified generals. Although he was weaker than actual deified generals, he was a universe overlord. Relax, Blade River Emperor, said Pei Feng Knight. I'm not here to kill you. Although you killed Bark Mirror Emperor, the true treasures he left belong to the Northern Territory Alliance. I'm here to take them away. Pei Feng Knight dashed toward Luo Feng like a flash of light. I was the one who killed Bark Mirror Emperor. Luo Feng said. I'll claim those true treasures as my trophies. Under the burning godly power, his voice was like thunder resounding through the broken space. Meanwhile, the gigantic beast god formed by 520 stars grabbed the space ring, armor, bloody gloves, and crystal balls. The gigantic beast god grabbed the trophies with his claw and flew back like a flash of light. He was so fast that even Pei Feng Knight couldn't catch him. In my pocket. Luo Feng waved his hand and put the space ring, the world ring, and the true treasure armor into his own world ring. A furious roar blasted near Luo Feng's ears. Blade River Emperor, you're just greedy. Luo Feng turned around and saw Pei Feng Knight dashing toward him. He grinned and transmitted his voice. Pei Feng Knight, you're a candidate deified general. Are you really that stupid? Do you really believe Bark Mirror Emperor would have left my true treasures alone if I were the one who got killed? What a joke. If you want them back, take them with your own hand. Pei Feng Knight was infuriated. The only rule in the universe was to fight. If Bark Mirror Emperor killed Luo Feng, he would have taken Luo Feng's true treasures as well. As for Pei Feng Knight, he thought Blade River Emperor should have given the true treasure back to him, as he had already asked politely and promised not to kill him. You moron. You're too arrogant. Pei Feng Knight transmitted his roaring sound, and there was fire burning in his eyes. He was more than 1,000 feet tall, which made him look taller and bigger than Bark Mirror Emperor. Though he couldn't catch up with Luo Feng instantly, he opened his mouth. An intangible attack dashed Luo Feng in light speed. Soul attack. It was faster even than the spiritual force weapon, and it was flexible. No. Luo Feng was terrified, but couldn't dodge it. He could only withstand the attack with all his power. Pei Feng Knight was a candidate deified general, which meant he had already reached the perfect level at one of the 72 deified general inheritances. His soul amplification already reached 100 times, which was the limit, and he also learned a set of special attacks that only belonged to deified generals. The power of that set of attacks was more powerful than the talent techniques of many special life forms. It was the ultimate technique of deified general inheritance, and it was a universe master level technique. Peifeng Knight, as a being at the same level as Shiluo Duo, had a life gene level of more than 60 times. Besides, he was a universe knight who had a godly body 100 times that of an undying fighter, which meant his godly body was 600 million times stronger than that of a sector lord, which made it more powerful than Luo Feng's original earthling body. Stronger godly body, perfect soul amplification, universe overlord level willpower, and universe master level techniques. He was superior to Luo Feng in all aspects. It was soundless. When Luo Feng's godly body was attacked, he could feel that his godly power was being stripped away. This technique attacked the life imprint in the godly power directly, and its goal was to completely destroy the life imprint, which was equivalent to destroying Luo Feng's soul. Guard! 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 Luo Feng was roaring in his heart, with his willpower and burning godly body controlling Tower Pearl. Star Pearl gleamed and locked Luo Feng's godly body, which protected him from all the fierce attacks from Peifeng Knight. Although he was inferior to Peifeng Knight in all aspects, without Tower Pearl, his soul would have been crushed completely under one attack. However, this was when the power of a true treasure was manifested. Luo Feng could resist Bark Mirror Emperor's talent technique with Tower Pearl, when he was only a sector lord, and now that his godly power was half that of Peifeng Knight, and he had the Tower Pearl to guard his soul. Ha ha, laughed Luo Feng. Peifeng Knight, your technique is not that impressive. Luo Feng transmitted his voice and started to flee like a beam of light. He knew that a universe overlord had multiple techniques, and he would have to utilize all he'd gotten if he wanted to fight a universe overlord. Besides, even if he utilized everything he had, a win wasn't guaranteed. He had just become undying, and he still hadn't gotten a top-tier true treasure like Force Arm. Shawu Wing was utilized, and Luo Feng started to flee swiftly among the space fragments. What? Peifeng Knight said. He resisted it. Peifeng Knight was shocked. Bark Mirror Emperor speculated that Luo Feng had a soul true treasure after hunting Luo Feng before, but he didn't report it back to the seniors of Northern Territory Alliance, because soul attack was a merciless technique, and soul true treasures were precious without comparison. True treasures like pieces of armor, and the Shawu wings could only weaken soul attacks. As for soul true treasures, they could guard the soul. If Flying Palace true treasures could defend one against material attacks, soul true treasures could defend the soul. Soul true treasures were more attractive to great beings, which was why Bark Mirror Emperor didn't make it public, as he was afraid that Luo Feng would be killed by some supreme being in Northern Territory Alliance. Thus, he couldn't get the soul true treasure. Instead, he had been waiting for the perfect opportunity, yet he resorted to self-destruction. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Seeing Luo Feng escape like a flash of light, Peifeng started to chase him and performed another technique. Law Domain. Peifeng Knight knew he didn't have much time, as the supreme beings of the human race might arrive soon. After that, he wouldn't have the chance. The hundreds of millions of miles of space around them turned silent, trapped in the law domain. Luo Feng was trapped as well. Law domain, of time law. He was stunned. Undying fighters could perform law domain, and so could universe knights. Besides, space and time law were more superior than gold, wood, water, fire, ground, wind, thunder and light. Control over law domain could make the power of law domain surge. Even as powerful as Luo Feng's world projection had been as a sector lord, the law domain of official level undying fighters could rival his world projection. Peifeng Knight gazed at Luo Feng coldly. Wind annihilation, he cried. The flow of time was bizarre within the time domain. Luo Feng tried to flee, but miniature tornadoes showed up around him, each about the size of an eyeball. They surrounded Luo Feng and dashed at him one after another. Get the hell away. Luo Feng shouted. He tried to use his Shawu wings to block the tornadoes, but they dodged the wings' strikes, easily making contact with Luo Feng's godly body. He didn't dare to close his Shawu wings completely. If he did so, he would be significantly slower, and he would be caught by Pei Feng Knight. Although he was already affected by Space Law Domain, it was not omnipotent. He could still change direction and keep his distance from Pei Feng Knight. The miniature tornadoes bit into Luo Feng's body. 60% of Luo Feng's godly body was gone immediately, which terrified Luo Feng. He's trying to annihilate my godly body. Luo Feng thought in horror. Fortunately, he had stored his world rings on his body where he hid remote ocean body, Mosha body, and golden horned beast body. The world ring with remote ocean body let out godly power, restoring Luo Feng's godly body. Luo Feng's godly body kept being weakened, but each time, it recovered. So this is the power of a universe overlord, said Luo Feng. He isn't even close to me yet, but he can still damage me like that. Luo Feng kept using his Shawu wing to keep his distance from Pei Feng Knight. Asterisk 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 asterisk. He's still alive, said Pei Feng Knight. Pei Feng Knight was dazed. Although this move wasn't effective against universe overlords at his level, it was lethal against ordinary universe knights. It was a technique made for Time Law Domain. His godly body is constantly being consumed, but somehow, it's still at 100%. But of course, he has the clone technique. He must have stored a body. Pei Feng Knight had figured it out. Bark Mirror Emperor had used the virtual network to broadcast the fight against Luo Feng when it first started, but when he realized he couldn't even defend himself against Luo Feng, he had turned off the broadcast as he felt ashamed. Which was why the heirs in the open-air square of the World of Glory and other superpowers in the universe only knew that Luo Feng had crushed Bark Mirror Emperor. Pei Feng Knight had not known that Luo Feng had brought his bodies to the fight. Pei Feng Knight's eyes gleamed with madness. I can only kill him after destroying his bodies. Pei Feng quickly hatched a plan. He had said he wouldn't kill Blade River Emperor before, as he knew Blade River Emperor would be revived even if he killed him. However, Blade River Emperor was obviously carrying his bodies with him. He didn't know exactly how many bodies Blade River Emperor had, but the number couldn't be large. Together with the original body, some fighters had 2 godly bodies while others had 3. Pei Feng Knight's eyes glinted fiercely. Kill, he snorted. 2 black whirlwinds came out of his nose and flew toward Luo Feng like 2 miniature black dragons. The 2 black whirlwinds didn't appear powerful, but all the space fragments they touched vanished immediately. Danger! 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 Luo Feng felt the wind's life-threatening essence, and quickly realized he was in trouble. My human godly body will be annihilated immediately if I am touched by these 2 black whirlwinds, thought Luo Feng. Although he was significantly inferior when it came to battle techniques, he could still sense that the 2 black whirlwinds were the most horrendous attacks he had ever encountered. Pei Feng Knight had already made 3 moves. The first move was one of the deified general ultimate techniques, and it was terrifically powerful. Luo Feng had withstood that attack with his Tower Pearl. The second move was a material attack, which was used when being cornered by weaker universe knights. However, it could still destroy half of Luo Feng's godly body. As for the third move, it was a material attack used when fighting universe overlords. Both of the 2 black whirlwinds were hundreds of times more powerful than the miniature tornadoes. No, thought Luo Feng. I'm trapped in Time Law Domain now, so even if I use Ancient Boat Galaxy, I can't get away. Perhaps he'll even take my Ancient Boat Galaxy. As for my Mosha body, he is only able to perform domain when he's alone, so I would need to put my original Earthling body back in the World Ring. However, Pei Feng Knight would never give me a chance like that. Luo Feng flew swiftly with his Shawu wing. He had made up his mind. Neither Ancient Boat Galaxy nor Mosha body was suitable. That left him with only one option. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Pei Feng Knight pursued Luo Feng, his eyes glinting greedily. He's got to have a soul true treasure to be able to resist my deified general technique, he thought. He's got to. No wonder Bark Mirror Emperor wasn't able to kill the then Sector Lord Blade River Emperor. And Bark Mirror Emperor had the benefit of an incredibly powerful talent technique. Payphone Knight was feeling more confident now. The deified general technique could severely damage even a universe overlord. Luo Feng would need a soul true treasure to resist it. A soul true treasure. The human race must indeed highly value Blade River Emperor. Even I, as a universe overlord, don't have that kind of true treasure. Payphone Knight watched the black whirlwinds closing in and shouted eagerly, "Die. Die. I'll take your true treasures after you're dead." Payphone Knight was a universe overlord, yet he only had two true treasures, both of which were mediocre and common. One was a piece of protective armor, and the other was a blade. He immediately figured out that this peerless talent of the human race had a true treasure wing and a soul true treasure. Die. Die. Payphone Knight cried, watching expectantly. It's all over, he thought. Even a universe knight with true treasure armor is likely to be killed by this move. Asterisk 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 asterisk. All was silent. Two black whirlwinds intertwined with each other as they got closer and closer to Luo Feng. Payphone Knight, you've left me no choice. Luo Feng transmitted his roaring voice. A towering shadow suddenly appeared behind Luo Feng. It was more than 5,500 miles tall. A godly body standing at a height of 5,500 miles was a terrific sight, and Payphone Knight was shocked to his very core. What kind of special life form is this? Payphone Knight stammered. A godly body at a height of more than 5,500 miles existed almost exclusively among flesh and blood type living beings. Earth only had a diameter of 6,000 miles. This living being was nearly as large as the planet Earth. The entire godly body started to burn, and the godly tower surged, destabilizing the Time Law domain. Although remote ocean body only had a life gene level of 1,000 times and the original Earthling body had a level of 3,000 times, remote ocean body emitted millions of times greater pressure to the Time Law domain than the original Earthling body. The reason, remote ocean body was simply gigantic. The godly power he burned every second was more than 100 million times that the original Earthling body did. The two black whirlwinds pursued Luo Feng at light speed, but remote ocean body charged directly at the black whirlwinds. Luo Feng had chosen the most appropriate time to let out remote ocean body, as he did so when the black whirlwinds were only 6,000 miles away from him. Remote ocean body enveloped the black whirlwinds. Like snow melting under the sun's rays, remote ocean body was being consumed. Larger, larger, larger. Remote ocean body broke into laughter, and the sound resounded through the boundless space. His godly body was suddenly enlarged, and he became 60,000 miles tall. The density of his body, therefore, became much lower. Yet the black whirlwinds were trapped inside remote ocean body, and needed to annihilate the godly power around them to move forward. The black whirlwinds kept consuming the godly power around them, but remote ocean body had unlimited godly power. Remote ocean body had the same godly power as universe knights, said Luo Feng. I had a godly body at the height of more than 5,500 miles for you to destroy. Let's see how much your black whirlwinds can destroy. Luo Feng relied solely on the gigantic godly body. It was unlikely for an enormous godly body like that to fall. One wouldn't be able to destroy the body, even if the body didn't fight back at all. After a few seconds, the two black whirlwinds dissipated after annihilating an enormous amount of godly power. You can destroy 9% of my godly body. Remote ocean body laughed. Ordinary universe knights can't damage 1/1000th of it even if they self-destruct. No wonder you're a universe overlord. Hong. Remote ocean body dashed at Payphone Knight. Payphone Knight had been chasing Luo Feng all along, and they were now only 6 million miles away from each other. Remote ocean body raced towards Payphone Knight. The original Earthling body is moving in the opposite direction, with remote ocean body moving in a straight line. I'll get closer and closer to you if you continue to pursue the original Earthling body. Blade River Emperor, do you really think you're invincible with that body? Payphone Knight roared. I'll let you know now that even a gigantic godly body like this is useless against me. Remote ocean body bumped into Payphone Knight. Explode. 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 Remote ocean body roared and blew itself up. What? Payphone Knight shouted, completely shocked. Never in his wildest dreams would he have expected this. Supreme beings with powerful godly bodies like that would never self-destruct. A godly body at a height of more than 5,500 miles would cost too much to recover, yet remote ocean body let out all its energies at once. The power was unbelievably mighty. An area of 60,000 miles around remote ocean body was dead silent, but everywhere within 600,000 miles was instantly blasted by the godly power. Space fragments flew hundreds of millions of miles into the distance. Bastard! Came a furious cry from the center of the explosion. A blue figure stood at the center of the explosion. He was surrounded by black air. The 6 eyes glinted fiercely. Damn you! Damn you! Enough, Payphone Knight. 2 powerful figures stood face to face with each other. One of them was Payphone Knight, and the other was a werewolf great being, beside whom stood Luophone. Luophone looked at Juphone Knight in front of him. Juphone Knight had received the complete deified general inheritance. He was a candidate deified general and a universe overlord. Juphone had arrived, just as Luophone's remote ocean body exploded himself. Luophone flew beside Juphone Knight, as he didn't want to continue the fight. Universe overlords are too powerful, Luophone thought. My remote ocean body can only injure him after self-destruction. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Juphone Knight and Payphone Knight faced each other at a distance. They were both candidate deified generals, and they belonged to the same category of deified general inheritance. Payphone Knight glared at the werewolf great being. You want to stop me, Juphone? I'm human, Juphone Knight said coldly. I'll surely defend a great being of my race. There were black whirlpools in all the 6 of Payphone Knight's eyes, and the airflow was tumbling around him. Then let's fight, he said. Juphone Knight responded, Juphone, you were not my match even before 20% of your godly body was depleted. I suggest that you leave. Otherwise, other great beings of my race will arrive soon. Bastard. Payphone Knight clenched his teeth. Damn it. He was exasperated. He was a universe overlord. It was strenuous to complete the deified general inheritance, yet he had done it. And as a universe overlord, he was seldom defeated unless he facing other universe overlords or universe masters. He hadn't risked everything yet. However, he hadn't expected to be attacked by the self-destruction of that godly body at a height of more than 5,500 miles. 5,500 miles. If it weren't for his true treasure armor, he would have been annihilated. Even with his true treasure armor, 20% of his godly body was gone. He was defeated by an undying fighter. Blade River Emperor. Payphone Knight roared, glaring at Luophone. You were willing to blow up your godly body. A godly body as powerful as a universe knight. A godly body at the height of greater than 5,500 miles. You are vicious. Luophone remained calm. All too easy, he said. I've underestimated you, Payphone Knight said. He stared at Luophone. Next time. I'll utilize everything I've got. I'll treat you like a universe overlord. Payphone Knight glanced at Juphone Knight. Juphone. You only rely on your true treasures. With that, Juphone Knight turned into a beam of light and teleported himself away. Although they were both universe overlords, Payphone Knight came from a mighty race of Northern Territory Alliance. There were lots of races within the Northern Territory Alliance, but they only had about the same amount of resources as the Hong Alliance did. It was fortunate for Payphone Knight to have been given 2 true treasures. As for Juphone Knight, he came from the human race, a pinnacle race in the universe with valuables to spare. Naturally, they highly valued their own great beings. Jufeng Knight had 4 true treasures, and they were a perfect combination. With his own mighty power and 4 true treasures, Jufeng Knight was indeed Peifeng Knight's better. Good for you, Luo Feng, Jufeng Knight said. He glanced at Luo Feng with a smile on his face. The space gradually became peaceful, and the space fragments vanished completely. Jufeng Knight and Luo Feng stood facing one another. You just injured Peifeng Knight, a universe overlord, said Jufeng Knight. You were able to injure someone who's able to fully operate the 3rd form of the true treasure armor on his body with his law comprehension. Impressive. Impressive, indeed. I'm just lucky. Luo Feng smiled. Generally, true treasures had different forms. For instance, his Shawu Wing had 3 forms, and with the user getting stronger, it could be better utilized. When Luo Feng tried to drive Star Tower, he could feel that the lore engravings inside it were complex to the point of being incomprehensible. Thus, he couldn't even operate it at a minimum level, let alone make the best of it. Peifeng Knight was a universe overlord, and that true treasure armor barely crossed the threshold of true treasures. He was indeed able to operate a true treasure in its 3rd form, which was why he had only lost 20% of his godly body after a 5,500-mile-tall godly body exploded in front of him. Jufeng Knight shook his head and looked at Luo Feng. It's because of your power. For what it's worth, I admire how you just blew up that enormous godly body. I'm not even in his league, Luo Feng said. I didn't have other option. Yes, Jufeng Knight said. He indeed overpowers you to a large extent. After all, you're only undying, and your law comprehension can't even compare with him. He can wield the power of the same true treasure much better than you. I assume you're unable to make the best use of your true treasure wing. Yes. Luo Feng nodded. He had just started the 2nd form of Shawu Wing. Besides, Jufeng Knight continued, he underestimated you in the first place and didn't even consider that you might be a contender. In the future, you might not even have the chance to self-destruct and hurt him. Luo Feng nodded. In the future, Peifeng Knight might keep his distance from remote ocean body. As long as he was more than 60,000 miles away from the center of the explosion, the blast wouldn't be dangerous. And if Luo Feng was too close to Peifeng Knight, he didn't dare detonate remote ocean body, as he was afraid that his original Earthling body would be injured as well. This time, his original Earthling body had been millions of miles away from the center of the explosion. Naturally, he hadn't been hurt at all. If, however, his original Earthling body had been in close quarters combat with Peifeng Knight, when he had detonated the remote ocean body, the original Earthling body would have been annihilated immediately, and Peifeng Knight would have only suffered a few injuries. At that point, Peifeng Knight would definitely have taken all the treasures left by Luo Feng's Earthling original body. He'll be on to you after this, Jufeng Knight said. He'll definitely turn this around. I'll tell you about him to make sure you won't be bullied by him in the future. Luo Feng listened carefully. Peifeng Knight has 2 true treasures, Jufeng Knight said. One is a piece of armor, and the other is a blade. As his true treasure weapon is a blade, he devoted lots of his energies and time to close combat, and he created incredible blade techniques. His fighting power, together with his blade, can destroy lots of treasures in one strike. Luo Feng was stunned. You must have been able to resist his soul technique if you survived that fight, Jufeng Knight said. As for some distant attacking skills, I'm sure you can handle them as well. The only thing you need to beware of is his close quarters combat techniques. They are his trump card. In close quarters combat, he can fully utilize his true treasure blade. Even if you have true treasure armor, your godly body won't be able to withstand the shockwave. Jufeng Knight shook his head solemnly. Unless you have a flying palace type true treasure. Is the combination of his fighting techniques and true treasure blade really that powerful? Luo Feng couldn't help but ask. Can it really destroy a treasure with a single strike? Does that mean my ancient boat galaxy would be at risk? There are different levels of treasures, Jufeng Knight said. Some top-tier treasures and set treasures are already close to true treasures, and they are difficult to destroy, whereas some ordinary treasure armors or weapons will be fragile. Luo Feng nodded. Ancient Boat Galaxy was a top-tier treasure, and was as valuable as true treasures. Besides, it had belonged to an inborn beast god known as Wine Master before. It should be solid. Remember, be mindful of his close-quarters combat techniques, Ju Feng Knight said. He nodded. All right, let's go back. Okay. Luo Feng nodded. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Luo Feng knew he didn't want to reveal his trump cards. He had only utilized the second move of Star Map when fighting Bark Mirror Emperor. And when he was fighting Pei Feng Knight, he could have hidden in Ancient Boat Galaxy and let Mosha Body perform his talent technique domain to escape. However, if he had done so, he would have revealed two of his deepest secrets. Ancient Boat Galaxy and the talent technique domain. Only a few in the universe, including 9 Remoteness Master and Chaos City Leader, knew about domain. It was a vital trump card for him, as he could almost certainly escape from any enemies weaker than Universe Masters. Hence, he wouldn't use it unless his life was seriously threatened. As for the remote ocean body, at the height of more than 5,500 miles, he could recover it in no time. After all, he should at least show some real power. Asterisk 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 asterisk. In the open-air square of the World of Glory, there was hustle and bustle among the heirs. What's the result of the battle? Bark Mirror Emperor's such a sore loser. He was the one who wanted a live broadcast in the first place, but he turned it off after realizing that he was at a disadvantage. It must be Bark Mirror Emperor who lost. That's right. He lost without a doubt. The heirs were upset by Bark Mirror Emperor. He had been exceedingly confident and had wanted all the heirs to watch the fight, presuming he would crush Blade River Emperor. It had indeed excited many heirs. The news spread across the universe, drawing attention from lots of supreme beings. Little did they expect Bark Mirror Emperor to cut off the feed halfway through the fight. Look, it's Blade River Emperor. All the heirs in the square looked towards the portal. A shadow appeared. It was Blade River Emperor. Luo Feng looked at the heirs in the distance. He saw his teacher True Yang Knight and his friends, including Cha Man Emperor. His voice resounded on the square as he said, "Hi, all. I've already finished the battle with Bark Mirror Emperor. Here is a clip of the battle." A blurry light shot out from Luo Feng's wrist guard, and a 3D virtual projection showed up in the sky of the square. The clip began at the point when Bark Mirror Emperor and Blade River Emperor met. The fight was fierce, but Bark Mirror Emperor was completely suppressed. Finally, at the end of the fight, Bark Mirror Emperor blew himself up in order not to be enslaved. It was a universe night-level battle, yet both of them were undying. One was a special life form, while the other was a timeless and peerless talent of the human race. But, to everyone's surprise, the result was that the human won, and the special life form was left with no choice but to destroy himself. Incredible. He died. Self-destruction. The heirs were astounded. They had already reasoned that Bark Mirror Emperor must have lost after watching the first half of the battle, but they didn't expect Bark Mirror Emperor to be so crushed so badly that he died. The square was filled with a sense of shock. The consensus was that only a universe knight could kill Bark Mirror Emperor. The heirs watched Luo Feng as he walked to where the heirs of Hong Alliance gathered. He sat beside his teacher True Yang Knight. Luo Feng glanced around and saw a shadow afar. Pei Feng Knight. Luo Feng frowned. Pei Feng Knight was also watching the video clip. He was visibly terrified to know that Blade River Emperor was making the footage of the battle public. Luo Feng could practically read his thoughts. Is he going to show the footage of him injuring me? Beings like Pei Feng Knight cared about their reputations a lot. Pei Feng Knight immediately connected to the world of glory with his consciousness. All good, all good. Pei Feng Knight was relieved. He only showed the footage of the battle between him and Bark Mirror Emperor. Pei Feng Knight suddenly turned around. While Luo Feng looked at him, they exchanged eye contact. Pei Feng Knight's eyes glinted aggressively. He moved his lips without making a sound, but Luo Feng could tell clearly what he had just said. Blade River, let's see who'll rescue you next time. I'll defeat you again next time. Luo Feng also moved his lips without making a sound. Pei Feng Knight vanished. Luo Feng grinned and looked back at the open-air square. All the heirs were amazed by the footage of the battle, and they all recorded it and transferred it back to the powers they belonged to. Likewise, the video was transferred to Hong Alliance and the human race. If I want to be a supreme being in the universe, I need to be a supreme being within the human race first. Thought Luo Feng. Many universe knights within the human race are bitter, because I made my settlement on the mountainside of Thunder Island. Words are useless. I need to prove myself with my records. Luo Feng smiled. Universe knights like Nine-Blade Knight will get to watch the footage soon. He made the footage public, as he wanted to prove his power with his record. To prove he could not only rival ordinary universe knights, but that he also killed them. This video will end here.